All right. So listen, I want to thank everybody for joining us today for our second in 2022, our second presentation. And today I'm really happy that Jacqy Stewart, of course, has offered to take over.
Offered.
Absolutely. Okay. And it's so funny. Of course, my phone's going to ring now. So hang on one second. Yes. So anyway, let me just, first of all, I just want to go through some of the announcements. Of course, today, of course, is what we're doing right now. And then right afterwards, we have our discussion lounge. Now, the discussion lounge is kind of morphing a little bit this year, something that we're trying. So it's our member deep dive. So we just get together and we kind of brainstorm referrals and everything else. That's the way it starts out. It seems to then take off and go into other conversations that are very relevant, but we really want to find a way to really help our members to connect with other people, especially if there's somebody that, there's a company that you really want to get into to talk to their people, and somebody might know somebody or might be connected with somebody who knows. So we want to make sure that we're able to help you to connect. So that's the discussion lounge right afterwards. Wednesday morning, we have, of course, Yuri Nesbitt. He does the investing for real estate, which is really cool. And then, of course, on Wednesday afternoon at 5:00, we have our very first networking call for Windsor for 2022. So that's cool, right? We have Thomas, of course. He is the city leader for Windsor. So we're pulling together a really nice group down there. And that is very, very exciting to me, right? Because I love Windsor. I hear that it's the tropics of Canada, right? Well, it's the tropics of Ontario. So there you go. So everyone, they're welcome to attend. If you are able to do business outside of your area and you would like to reach people down in Windsor, then please jump on, because they're going to be jumping on to meet you. So definitely be there for that. That is Wednesday evening. And then, of course, Thursday morning, we have Tech Talk with Catherine Davies, one of my favorite shows. I never miss one. Go ahead, Catherine, what's on?
Thanks, Ivan. This week it will be, we're only in the second week, right? Yeah. It is going to be talking about what's the latest going on in tech, right? Because there's like a whole bunch of brand new stuff coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost the acronym. The
CES?
Consumer Electronics
Yeah.
Convention is going on right now in Vegas, right? So there'll be lots to talk about.
Wonderful. Well, very exciting. And then, of course, at noon on Thursday, we have Thursday at noon, we have the directory training. So, of course, anybody who wants to jump on, I know that we have some new members here, which I will talk about in a few seconds, because I'm really excited about that. So please jump on so you can be fully trained on the back end system, right? There's so many cool features. We have a few new features that are coming out. One of them might already be out. I just need to go and check. And so that's kind of exciting. So that's at noon. And then, of course, on Thursday at 12:30, we have the Women's Business Club meeting until 1:30. Do not miss it. Now, listen, here's something exciting. All right. So Friday at 9:30 a.m., because I know that everybody likes to throw away their 9:30 to 10:30, we have a teaser on our upcoming learning module that we're launching. So as you guys know, we've been talking about, I've gotten your feedback, and we've been talking about creating a learning module that anybody, any member, if you want to train or you want to teach a course or whatever it is, you can do that through our learning module. We're gonna set up a system where you can go in and create an online course that people can go in and either take for free or they can pay for, right? It's a good way of members being able to generate some revenue for themselves, et cetera. You could train anything about anything. It doesn't have to be about what you do, right? You could be a basket weaver and decide that you want to talk about darning socks. So whatever you want to do, you can do it on the system, right? So, and that is Friday morning at 9:30. We want to be able to have that set up so that you can just to show you how it's going to work, and then you can go in and set yourselves up, etc. Of course, we're always on hand to help you, right? Of course, Catherine also, who happens to be a pro on this platform. The platform is teachable. It's a very, very good and stable platform, and that's the one that we've chosen to be able to use.
And Teresa had done a lot of research on it before I even got it, but I've been on it for the last year. I have 500 to 1,000 because it's not just me, right, bringing customers on. There's a team of us bringing people on. And I've never had one complaint about people not being able to log in or get back into their programs. It's super simple. It uses all different formats for you and I to put stuff in. So it's good to get the information because you can develop your own templates for certificates, however you want them worded. It's pretty amazing. And I would imagine you guys got it on where you don't pay anything for them collecting our fees, right? It's just the regular fee. So basically, if you're posting any courses that are free, we don't take anything from it. We don't charge you. You're a member, but if someone pays for your course, we take a chunk, right? Of course, we are chunk takers, right? It's a good program because some platforms will even take another $2 every time somebody signs up, plus a credit card charge, right? Or you know how they'll take a percentage, right?
Yes.
Teachables has been a lifesaver for my program.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's where we're going with that. So I just wanted to say that. And then, of course, I want to welcome Peter Schwartz. Okay. He's with Integrated Productivity Tools. Yes. And he's right here in Hamilton. It's nice to have, Peter has been auditing us for a little while now. And he came to our Christmas party here. And it was really nice because he instantly kind of, took control, jumped in on the conversations, gave us feedback, and it was quite cool, right? So welcome. And I also want to welcome our newest city leader, which is Jennifer. Jennifer, of course, has been with us for a while, and she is now the city leader of Kitchener, Ontario. So check this out. We have Kitchener, we have not Guelph. Honestly, we have Barrie. Right, Kitchener, Barrie, and of course Thomas has taken over down there in Windsor, which has some absolutely fantastic folks. And by the way, I heard that Windsor also has the best pizza around, so I can't wait until we can go on down there and actually sample it. All right. So, with that said, today's topic is on leadership, and again, Jacqy's going to help me out with this. But the first thing I noticed, which is really interesting, is that. But in my studies, I learned that entrepreneurs don't automatically make good leaders, right? And I know that some leaders don't make good entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs, I thought, you're an entrepreneur, you've got it in you to lead, right? But that is not true, which I thought was quite fascinating.
I was going to start with a quote and then get everyone's sort of insight onto this, because I want to know upfront what you actually think makes a good leader. So the quote is, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. So thoughts on that? Because it took that whole thing out about leadership really being about me. And where is your focus at when it comes to leadership? So I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on that and what you actually deem to be a good leadership quality.
Jacqy, could you just repeat that quote again, please?
Sure. Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence.
Silence.
That was deeper than I expected it to be on a Monday morning.
Thank you for asking for it a second time, because I don't know if I fell asleep for a second, but I missed the first one.
Trance. We put everyone in trance.
I muted it the second time, but that was really, really powerful. And I think
Yeah.
what I take away from that is you have to make such an, leadership is developing the skills and kind of empowering others to become a leader themselves so that when you're in absence, it continues.
Mhm.
So that's our whole role, I believe, is to help develop other leaders in order for our businesses to continue to thrive, continue to thrive. So that was really powerful. Thank you, Jacqy.
Mhm.
I think there's one more thing to add on to that, though, too.
Oh, there's
And
lots.
that is that, you can only be a leader if people respect you, right?
Right.
If people don't respect who you are and I guess, your ethics and how you operate and everything in your daily life, you really can't be a leader because nobody wants to follow somebody that's not giving a good example.
Right.
Well, I was going to say that was actually linked to another quote I did find this morning when I was deciding what I wanted to start with. And it said that true leaders always practice the 3 R's: respect for self, respect for others, and responsibility for all their actions. And that was one of the things that I wrote down this morning, was looking at this idea of responsibility and where does the responsibility lie, right, when you take on a leadership role. And how, it is this idea of needing to take 100% responsibility for anything that happens, whether you succeed or fail, have a mishap, right? How you respond to that and what you do with it.
So
And
technically speaking, though, we are all leaders here, right? Right. We're all leaders in one way or another. So how many of us have a really hard time taking responsibility for things that go? I mean, we all love taking responsibility for the things that go right. But how many people, when something goes wrong, I put my hand up every now and then, something goes wrong, the first thing is, well, it went wrong because, so-and-so did it. And if I can't think of anybody, then I always pick Teresa. You know what I mean? Like,
She's here now. Stop.
Ultimately, she's ultimately responsible. So, you know what I mean? Is that terrible?
Well, it's not effective leadership.
No. Thanks
Right.
for, we are broadcasting.
So does
And
that
2
mean I get
platforms,
leadership
yeah.
on much better because I take the
Ooh,
I take it?
that's right.
Yes. If you're owning if you're taking the responsibility for it, yes.
I see a counseling session coming.
Marriage counseling, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to add to this idea of responsibility and then adding in that layer of accountability, because we think about leaders always being like sort of at the top, right? And there's this idea that nobody ever floats around at the top by themselves. Right. So all leaders will have a network of resources, but they will also have a network of strong relationships. And within that, the people that they associate themselves with. So we've all heard the saying, you are the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with.
Right.
And so leaders will tend to associate and build relationships with other leaders.
Right.
And there's numerous reasons for this, but it is this idea of, 1, they'll hold each other accountable, and 2, they will have, if you don't have the resource, someone else will. Right. So it's having that network that you can go to say, hey, I need this, or bounce ideas around. I mean, we have that sort of set up here on a Monday morning, giving you the opportunity to be able to access the resources, build the relationships that you need in order to be supported as you grow as a leader.
Okay, so let me go around the room just real quick, right? Since we have a nice small group here, I'm going to start with Nathan, just because he just turned his camera on, so I'm going to jump on him. But so when you think about leaders, right? When you think about leadership, what is the first thing, the first trait of a leader that you think is the most important?
There's 2 or 3. I think empathy is a big one, because leader of a team means you have to be able to be empathetic to the fact that not everybody on your team is going to be as dedicated to the business as you are, right? Like my business is my business. If I have somebody who's an administrator or, some sort of role that I'm paying somebody to do a job for me, they're not going to be as invested in the business as me. And I think there's a lot of times people, especially in big corporations, there's this expectation in people in management roles that they expect everybody that works for them to be as invested in the success of the business as them. And I think that's a huge misnomer, because I'm sorry, I came to this place to get a paycheck. I didn't come here to necessarily drive the business, if you will. And then at the other one too, which was discussed a couple of times already, is accountability, because, ultimately it's your business, it's your final responsibility. It was funny, we were kind of talking about, I heard the conversation going around the topic of like finding someone else to sort of blame for your problems, or finding someone else to sort of put the blame on. I love taking blame for everything, because then nobody else can hold that over me.
Yeah.
I'll sometimes look at weird situations that I know I literally have nothing to do with, and just kind of put it on myself, because it makes me feel like I've got the power to sort of control my day a little bit more.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Interesting. I'd like to drill down a little bit on that, but we'll go around the room and I'll come back to you on that. Sheila.
I agreed. The first thing that came to my mind was empathy and sympathy, because you're working with a whole lot of people. And for me, it's all about finding solutions for each and every single person who I happen to speak with. So if you don't take the time to know what they need, then how can you help them, right? Yeah.
Okay. Christiane.
Let me unmute. Good morning. Thank you. For me, listening is the start of everything else that we've just talked about. If you're not a good listener, if you're not prepared to just listen, the rest is not going to fall into place.
Wonderful. Okay, cool. All right, Terry.
You can call me George. I'm just kidding. My husband used my computer for a golf pool yesterday. Trying to change my name, but it doesn't let me. Anyways, leadership, and I think of leadership, I think of people out front, like willing, and I take responsibility. I'm like Nathan. Everything is my fault. Like I'm the first to say, yeah, no. Obviously, something I did, because I just want people to know that I take responsibility. But I think of being a leader as being someone that's in the trenches, out front, leading the team versus from behind, kind of, behind. So that's my take on leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Okay.
My world.
Okay. All right, Maggie.
I guess what I've been hearing, all good things, but also strength and enthusiasm. If you're not enthused about a project, how are you going to get other people enthused? So I think that's one of the biggest. You've got to be out there and dynamic and not afraid to show that enthusiasm.
Okay.
There's a sense of authenticity with that as well.
Yeah.
Right? Showing up as you.
Yeah.
And that.
All right, Jacqy, you're next.
I like that. I mean, everything that everyone's saying this morning, the two that stuck out to me the most thus far were that listening and empathy, right? Because I think that's where it all starts from. You can have all these visions and this passion and all of that and go driving ahead. And if you don't stop to actually assess, listen, hear where everybody's at, what they need, how you can support them, then you're just going to be out at the front of the race all by yourself, and everyone else is going to be way behind you, and then you've defeated the purpose of what you're doing. So it's listening in order to be able to support and being able to empower. And I'd say I'm going to go with that being the big one that sort of sparked for me, was this idea of you are empowering others. A good leader will always empower.
Before I jump to the next person, Jacqy, I got to ask you about this empowerment thing. Do you think that this is something that we're looking at differently in 2022 than we did in 1998?
Sure. We're always looking at things differently. We're always up.
But how? What? Because 1998 was a completely different environment. If everybody remembers, that was in the middle. Peter, that was in the middle of the tech boom, right? Everyone was doing things. It was giddy up. It was work from 6 a.m. until 5 a.m. It was go get it. Leaders were very charismatic, but they were drivers. They were, let's go. What's changed, do you think, if anything?
Well, I would say there's a lot more focus on personal empowerment. And that is opening up space in people's worlds to be able to find more harmony in their days. So instead of it being this idea that I must, you must work hard, meaning I've got to work 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, right? It's a focus on, if I'm really empowered and I can take responsibility for everything, then I can pick and choose where I put my energy, which allows us to build a more harmonious balance between personal life, business life. It's not all or nothing.
Okay, Catherine, I'd love to hear your leadership trait that stands out.
Mine is, like Christiane was communication. I find that owners or the top levels typically treat us like children. And so they believe that they don't have to explain anything to us. They just tell us what we have to do. Well, how do you expect me to buy into your vision or your direction if I don't understand why? Maybe it's very logical what you're doing, but if I can't see it, I'm going to resist, right? And that's where I wanted to make a comment on Nathan's too, is that he's right. Typically employees do not care, but that's because I've not been treated as an equal. And here's the thing, I'm an intelligent person. I know the supervisor or the manager always wins. Like, how do you get to a certain age and not recognize that? Right. But if you're treating me as part of the team that's all on a level playing field and making me feel empowered, I guess is Jacqy's word, right? That what I'm saying really is going to make a difference. You may not accept it, but you've been thoughtful about the suggestions I've given you and the direction I've suggested, then I'm going to buy in. I'm going to treat it like my own business. There are lots of people that you go, this isn't your business, right? Oh, but they're so loyal to me and they're so good to me. That's what you want, because what I understand is a leader always wants to have a group of advisors surround themselves with people who are actually smarter than me, right? I have the vision and they have the skill. And so if we can get them to buy into our program, empower them, I can be their cheerleader, and that's it. That's what I think a leader is the cheerleader.
Wow. I can't wait to sum this up, because you're hitting some amazing points. I'm going to pick on Sita. Jennifer, did I pick on you yet? Okay, you're after Sita.
I think the word that came up to me first was courage. I think a great leader is someone I would think that is at the forefront and also the frontline decision maker. So sometimes you're going to have to make some very hard decision, and you're going to need all the strength and courage to make sure you make the right decision while being considerate, right? Like someone who makes great decisions for the whole of the team has to also be very mindful of all the people that it impacts. So that also factors into their way of thinking and making sure that it benefits everybody.
Cool. All right. Okay. All right. Then Jennifer.
So to me, leadership is service. You are in service of your vision. You're in service of the people that you're leading. And when you come at leadership or leading a team or leading whatever. It's influence and serving. But when you come at it from the perspective of I'm serving these people that I'm leading, you're going to cheer them on. You're going to communicate the vision in a way that makes sense to them. You're going to be your authentic self. Like all of these pieces that everyone has brought up kind of start to show up because you're not thinking about what leadership does for you, right? You're not thinking about, oh, I'm the KW city leader and now I'm going to be famous in KW and I get to do all these things. Sure, there's perks, but when I'm looking at being the city leader for KW, I'm excited about making connections. I'm excited about finding the right people to join the network and serve them in the best way possible. And when you come at leadership from a position of serving, then you are already steps ahead in seeing the needs of the people who you are serving, because you're a few steps above them and you can look down and see what they need and where you can make connections and how to best show up for them in a way that helps them get to the next level. Because that's what our goal is, right? Like we want people to come along and level up with us in whatever area we're leading them. So if we're leveling up, we're bringing them with us and we get to where we want to go when we bring our people along with us.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. I love it. Thomas, you around?
Morning, everybody. Well, there's a lot already said, so I don't want to duplicate it, but I mean, I think education is one too. You got to be able to educate. So many times, you've been in jobs where I've taken on jobs where, managers and my superiors, they play that old school thing. I don't tell anybody anything because, fear of job loss. Because if I teach you what I know and then you know what you know, I'm irrelevant or anything. I still remember when I had one of my first jobs that when it was a contract, my boss didn't even extend his hand to wish me well at the end of the contract. Like, I put in the hours I worked and we butted heads because I didn't agree with a lot of the things, the way the project that I was involved with worked out, but he never bothered to extend his hand at the end of the contract. And I was like, that's kind of tacky. No matter what, at the end of the day, I put my hours in, whatever, at least extension of the hand and just, don't wish me well. I could care less, but at least extension of the hand. Didn't even bother. But the education part, because he refused to let me in on anything of any bit of information that was, how the infrastructure works for the business, the plans on the project. I was just basically hired a grunt to just put 14 to 16 hours in a day so they could, accomplish the project, and that's it. That says a lot, and it's not the first time, and I'm hopeful now it won't be the last time, because you never know. Sometimes I butt into customers taking over, and the previous IT company is reluctant to share the information, so I got to start from scratch. It still happens from time to time, but in a different capacity. But that education point's got to be there. You got to be able to teach your team. But as an owner and manager, you can't be afraid to keep learning either. You got to be able to either, whether it's in your trade or those soft skills, because my soft skills are usually where my problem is. I don't play nice with others for a lot of times. I say what I need to say. I don't sugarcoat. I don't plan on changing the non-sugarcoating part, but I think I have to change on how the message is delivered. So that, again, part of my education as a business owner. I can't just go in like a bull in a china shop. I have to at least, maybe go in like a mule in a china shop. A little bit of a smaller animal, but same kind of approach, right?
A rabbit, right? Yeah, I hear you.
That's kind of the way I look at it, right? So
interesting. Okay, all right. Well, you know what? Just as you said, Thomas, as I get down to the last three people, it's hard to come up with things because a lot has already been said. But I do want to pick on Teresa, Roshan, and Michael. So I'm going to go with Michael first.
All right. So I think if you want to be a leader, you got to be respected. And respect comes not about the way you act in a meeting, but it comes on what you do every day. If you don't treat people good every day, you're not going to be respected. You're not going to be able to lead those people because you don't have their respect. And that brings me forward to being relatable, right? You have to be able to relate to your audience, build relationships, know what your audience is actually trying to accomplish, because your audience is trying to accomplish something too. So that comes in putting supports in place, making sure that those people are feeling valued. And I mean, it can be, like Thomas said, it can be the smallest thing. Say thank you once in a while, right? Buy a coffee, whatever. There's all kinds of ways you can say thank you to people and make them feel valued, and that makes you a leader.
Mhm.
You're not you're not on the pedestal of being a leader. Leadership is something that you have to earn. You earn it by how you work with others and take accountability for what you're doing.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Roshan.
Oh, I got to unmute. I think, us putting this together, respect, trust, listener, and strength, RTLS. I'll make a shout of that. I mean, you got to have respect for the people that coming to you. You got to have trust, and you got to be a good listener. Without those things, I don't think you can be a good leader, or you could be in a leadership role.
Wow. Okay. All right. Teresa, last but not least.
So I think everything's really been said here multiple times, which is amazing that we all kind of look at as leadership as the same. But I also think being personable, you have to be able to relate to those people as well. You, at some point, were probably in their position before you got into that leadership role. So, it does come back to servicing, what their needs are, and, making sure that you're helping them. At some point, you're probably hoping not to be in that leadership role and possibly be, in a higher role or even retired. So that role is not going to be with you forever. So you do want to actually be training up the next best leader, and you have to be able to, really focus on that, servicing them and making sure that they're going to be the best leader possible.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, wow, Jacqy, there's a lot here. But before I throw it back to you, I'm just going to also add to that a few things that Forbes has said are traits of an effective leader. Self-managing. How many of us have an issue with that? Self-managing. Okay. Acting strategically, being an effective communicator, of course, that we talked about, being accountable, holding yourself responsible for the things that happen that are good and bad, setting clear goals. How about vision? It's amazing that no one talked about vision. Vision of the future. Where are you going? Being able to manage complexity. How many of us have complexity in our businesses, right? Being able to stimulate or foster creativity and innovation in the people, right? Team building. Somebody who's a team builder that can work well with other people. And some leaders have an idea of the team being over here, and every now and then somebody from that team will come to them and tell them what's going on, and then they go back and but they don't view themselves as being part of the team, right? Learning agility as opposed to learning inflexibility, right? And I'm sure that as we're thinking about these things, some of us, I know that when we first started this, Catherine was saying that she wanted to know what the components were of being an effective leader and whether there were some things missing. I'm sure that some of us are thinking, wow, yes, I do need to work on that, or I do need to work on this. But is there such a thing as an ideal or an effective leader? Go ahead, Jacqy.
Yes. I mean, your in terms of effective leadership is going to be in the results that are outputted, and looking at what are the measurements that you're actually basing it on, because it's not always going to be on sales, right? It may be, effective leadership is based on how effective your team actually performs. How motivated are they? How excited are they to show up? Somebody was talking about that earlier, right? That idea of really supporting the people that you're working with, and therefore you build a more effective team.
So I'm going to stir the pot then. Because I like to stoke the fire a little bit, get some controversial conversations happening. So is that not what it's all about then, right? Results.
Yes.
Right? How many of us have ever used the term, the end justifies the means? I need results. So now thinking about that, and you're thinking about empathy, and can empathy actually yield fewer results? You know, is a hammer better than a feather? Go ahead. No one wants to talk about that because we're live streaming.
Can I ask you to clarify the question, Ivan?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. I mean, is it sometimes we think about results, right? The results are usually we're looking at the bottom line, people say, right? So as a leader, you know, if we're looking at results and the bottom line, sometimes empathy and communication and warm and fuzzy doesn't actually get us there, right? Don't we all know the familiar term, familiarity breeds contempt, right? So how does that, is it okay to get fewer results, but to be known as being empathetic and kind and loving and bringing a coffee every now and then? Go ahead, Nathan.
I think it's a difference of short-term versus long-term thinking. Because quite honestly, if you are empathetic, that is going to breed long-term results. I think if you're trying to hit a result every 90 days, then yeah, you might be looking to maybe pull back on the empathy a little bit because you want to hit these targets every 90 days. And again, this goes back to, like, I'm a guy that worked in the banks for 9 years, right? So I know how they operate. And a lot of times people will sort of be less empathetic because these people are expected to hit these certain, watermarks every 90 days. And if they're not hitting those watermarks, then, more micromanagement and things like that tends to come out of it. So I think it's just a matter of, are you thinking long-term? Like I want my business to be successful for the next 10 years, or are you thinking I want my business to be successful in the next 90 days?
Fascinating. Christiane, I'd love to hear your results. I know you're going to get in there. I can see you I'd love to hear from Christiane on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, Nathan, and I agree. I sum that up with the word balance. A good leader will have balance between both and know how to direct it and when to direct it. It's like a play, and you just need to know when to make the punch and when to draw the line. You need to know when to be empathetic.
Okay, Jacqy.
The other thing that I was going to say is a good leader knows his audience or her audience and knows what motivates that audience and what tools you have to use, because depending on the personalities of the audience, the tools you use and how you motivate people are going to change, because not every audience is the same.
All right. Okay, Jacqy.
No, let Jen go.
Oh, sorry, Jen. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar to Michael. In a great leader knows how to motivate and knows the best way to communicate and build excitement for the person they're speaking to. So they know when to hold them accountable. They know when to call them to task. They know when to drop the hammer. Because a great leader is very aware of all of the tools they have at their disposal. They understand how the people under them work, how they work well, and when they either need encouragement or when they need a kick in the ass. So, and that element of really understanding people and the team you have is key as a leader. And then when to, as you were saying, Ivan, either use a feather or pull out the hammer and beat somebody over the head with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm going to add to that, because each and every one of us intrinsically has a way that we will be motivated. And so some people do need a stick. They need you coming up behind. They need the deadlines. They need to know that if I don't do A, B, and C, I'm not going to have a job at the end of the week. That's going to motivate them to get going. Other people are motivated by this idea of reward, right? The carrot. And so I know when I worked in the school system, I showed up as a better teacher when that was recognized, when the hard work was recognized and, you were acknowledged for it, that idea of acknowledgement or praise. You've got to have both. So like Christiane was saying, you've got to have that balance between the two, because if you're just constantly kicking people along, they're going to eventually get off the train, right? They're not going to want to be there anymore. They're gone. So
Okay, go ahead, Terry.
I think it comes with experience too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So when
Yeah,
you have that level of experience, you get to learn what's necessary for each whatever environment or circumstances. So over time, you get to learn what the situation needs.
Not everybody learns.
There's
Right.
definitely-
Hey, Terry?
And not everyone's a leader.
All right. We'll let Terry go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's generally 4 different personality types. So if you're using the wrong method with the wrong personality type, some people, are very motivated, and I would say most people are very motivated by recognition. Like recognition, people really strive for getting recognized. That's a good majority of the people love to be recognized. Some people, there's just different personalities. If someone treated me one way, I'm a whale, dolphin. I'm trying to be all 4, but I generally am a whale dolphin. So I love to help people and have fun. So if you're motivating me with something like towards that, I'm going to be more motivated than the money. Maybe I'm not a shark. Like sharks only want to talk about money. And if you try to tell them, you're going to help a lot of people, they'll be like, I'm a shark. So you got to know your people as well in leadership and treat people, kind of go in their vein. At least that's how I look at it.
So I want to tell us a quick story. So in high school, many years ago, I had a teacher that was tough as nails. And you know what? The year before, when I knew that I was going to be having that teacher the following year, everybody warned me, oh, you know what? Mr. So-and-so is tough as nails. He is a brute. Anyway, so of course, that year, he lived up to his reputation. But the thing is, at the end of it, when we're looking back on high school, right? He is the one that I think about the most because he was a great teacher. He was tough as nails. He didn't put up with crap. He threatened to beat you up. Back then you could as a teacher, right? But man, oh man, I really like the guy, right? So sometimes some people are all hammer, and that yielded respect. What are your thoughts?
I think, sorry, I'm going to just jump in here because I think that teacher goes with your personality perfectly.
Woo, mamacita.
But for me, I would just be like, hey, you know what? I don't need this class. I will do an extra year just to get my extra credit because this is ridiculous.
So I guess it depends on how a person affects you and how their style or how they are resonates with you, right?
That's right.
Wow.
I was going
to make a domination joke, but I'm not going to. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
It all links back to relationship building, right? And good leaders that's one of their main focuses is really building relationships, whether it's with people above them, on the same level as them, below them. It doesn't matter where they are. It's literally making those connections and fostering those relationships from that place of service.
I also think from my experience working in the bank, one of my favorite managers was kind of the similar personality to what you described, Ivan, someone who's tough as nails. And funny enough, so I moved to a new branch and the manager who I was supposed to be reporting to I knew when I was coming in, she was going to be taking mat leave. She actually ended up taking mat leave early because there was complications and whatnot. But anyway, she was gone by that time I came in. So they had already had a replacement manager, and the manager that took over for her was the only word I can come up with off the cuff is flighty, she knew that you had to do these things, but she didn't really enforce it or maintain any kind of consistency. And the expectations were very wishy-washy. So it was hard for us to feel like we were being held accountable. Then when this manager came back from her mat leave a year later, and that whole year, my colleagues were warning me oh, she's such a B word and she's very, very hard and unemotional and only cares about results and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to take those preconceived notions out because I want to have my own relationship with her. I don't want to base my relationship with her on somebody else's interpretation. So when she came back, she was probably one of the best managers I ever worked for because I wouldn't say she was unemotional. I think she had a lot of empathy, but she didn't let people get away with not doing what they were supposed to be doing. So if there was an expectation, it was clear cut, and she would ensure that she followed up with you. If there was something that needed to be done by 9 a.m. on Monday, she would come to your office at 9:02 and say, "Did you get this done?" Or if you had to make so many calls in an hour, she'd come into your office, 62 minutes later and say, "Did you get your calls done?" So
I love it.
And I think you can still be empathetic. You just need to know, like the other theme I've heard is, knowing your people and knowing what motivates them and knowing how to keep them going.
Okay, so listen, we've got a few minutes left. So this is what I want us to do. This is exciting, okay? Because I know that Jacqy's thinking, oh man, Ivan, ask the question. You want to. So I'm going to ask it. Thinking about yourself, Christiane, Peter, Maggie, everybody, okay? Thinking about yourself as a leader and hearing all the discussion that we've had about leadership and the qualities, etc., right? What is one thing that you would try to incorporate into your leadership skills this year? All right. And I'm not gonna pick on everybody, but I'm going to allow anybody to just if someone's already talking, just let them talk. Don't be like me. Anyway, but just one at a time. But go ahead.
I'll go first.
Yes.
I'm going to include more creating vision for the team. I get a vision that everybody can, get excited about, get on board with, and just talking more about the vision of where we're going to be as a company, as a team, this year of 2022.
Wonderful. Well, you don't need the enthusiasm part because you got that. So the vision. Okay, got it. Okay. Anybody else?
I have sold myself, which is the end of enthusiasm.
Okay.
I had mentioned to Jacqy, actually, I'm very much, that sounds like George there, that I need that storytelling, that vision, because I have to get work on like if I weren't around you and now these other people, I wouldn't have my head. I feel like a coronavirus getting a new little notch pushed out as my brain expands, right? And so to be able to give that vision to somebody else I've sorely lacking that. So I wish one of you guys would come up with a leadership program. Okay, just say it. Oh, sorry.
Someone should. Anyone else?
I actually have a leadership program, Catherine. We will talk.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Anyone else? What would you add to your leadership skill sets?
So for me, one of the things and one of my big focuses for this year is this idea of showing up, right? Showing up for myself and therefore showing up for others in new, we didn't talk about this idea so much about being innovative, but given the fact that we can't literally show up the way that we used to, right? Looking at different ways that I can still show up and share and inspire in different methods.
Okay, so I'm going to add to that, because if I were to think about something that I should do is this, I get inspired by Christiane because sometimes she jumps on the call and she's walking, she's in the sunshine, she's stopping someplace, she's having a coffee, she's figuring out ways to keep herself motivated and let creativity flow, right? Whereas for myself, I tend to do the tried and true. I tend to follow the paths that are carved very, very deep in my, the little synaptic canals. There's no new path, right? It's tried and true. So I think that this year, as a leader, I'm not as effective as a leader because I'm constantly trusting the old patterns, right? And this year, if I can actually step out of that and find other paths to travel. And I'm talking about for creativity. I'm talking about heading out of my comfort zone into the unknown, like Brantford or Paris, Ontario, like the unknown, right? I think that would be a good step in the right direction.
I think it's very important, considering what's happening, to definitely readjust our mindsets and think of brand new ways to go about things. I think that the times are calling for that, definitely. Yeah.
Ivan, I wanted to ask you a question about what you just said. You said you want to step out of your pattern. So the question is, what is actually going to make you step out of your pattern? What has changed that will actually make you step out of your pattern?
So that's a really good question. So I guess the only way I can answer that is this, that over the past 3 weeks, really, over Christmas and the imposition of this new lockdown, I thought to myself a really scary thought. I'm just taking you through the mental process of getting to this point, that just suppose, Christiane, that this is it for the next 40 years. Lockdown after lockdown after variation after variation. Is this it? Is this it? I go from one mouse cage at my home into a mouse cage in my car to this mouse cage at the office and back and forth. And every now and then I get to go out and play at Best Buy or at Food Basic or whatever, right? That's it. I get to play. I get to run around and up and down those aisles, right? And then I go back to my mouse cage at home. That's it. Am I okay with that? Is that really, like, what are the ideas in 5 years going to look like if this is it? If this is the environment I'm in for this time? And I thought, it sounds stagnating to me, and I need to not be stagnant. So.
And I'm going to help you out with that one, Ivan, in answering Michael's question, because it was a really good question as well. Mm-hmm. What I've discovered, and I think where you're going with this, is sometimes we don't have to think about so hard about what will get me out of this rut, if you want to call it a rut or this lane or whatever. There are things that are happening to us around us that spark the idea. Mm-hmm. If we let that in, it's just, we just open ourselves up to whatever, and something will create a new idea. So for example, I was trying to find different ways to be physically active, right? Gyms are closed again, da-da-da-da. Not that I was a gym person, but here we go. Well, you know what I did? I'm into boxing. Thank you very much.
What?
Look at the reaction on the screen, right? No, but awesome. Did you think I was going to come out with that this morning?
No, that was a punch in the face.
I'm standing there and I can go like this all around my island. Okay? Just something as simple as that.
I love it.
When someone sparked the idea, did I ever think of, I think today I'm going to do boxing in order to get out of my rut. You don't know. It doesn't happen like that. But all I'm saying is we need to be open-minded to just let ideas come to us that will spark something else. And that still then gets back to leadership. It's all that whole same thing. So that's how I motivate myself, but I never stop. There needs to be something different, something new. So this year's boxing.
Okay. So
don't worry, Ivan. Don't worry, Ivan. You'll find your.
You will.
Well, you know what? I know myself well enough to know that I talk to everybody. Teresa knows that. I don't care where I go. I could be here. I could be in Texas. I could be anywhere. I'm standing next to somebody. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to start talking to them. Right. I'm the guy in the elevator that looks back at everybody while they're looking up at the numbers. Right. Hey, everybody. Right. Drives everybody crazy. But I talk to everybody. So I know that if I were to get out of my comfort zone, I know that I'm gonna sit someplace and have a coffee and talk to somebody else, and I'm gonna learn something new. I'm gonna maybe be open to some sort of collaboration of some sort. I don't know, but the thing is that staying in the same ruts, as you said, good word. Yeah, it's not gonna get that going. So that's me. But it's not about me. It's actually about you. So you tell me what other, I think we're actually just 2 minutes. So does anybody else have, if not, I'll have Jacqy kind of sum up, and then I'll go through the announcements again, and then we'll close. Go ahead.
Anyone else? I was going to just add one more thing. One, thank you for because everything I had down on my list this morning came up in discussion, which is really awesome. There's one other thing I wanted to add, and this was the idea of behavioral flexibility and leaders needing to, like you're talking about, looking at situations, evaluating how's it going, and being able to turn directions at the drop of a dime, right? And not getting stuck on this was the way it was supposed to go. And that's where a lot of businesses have failed, because they didn't have that leader that could go, okay, new situation, we're here, now what do we do? Right. So rather than trying to push through and do things the way you've always done them before, being open to new possibilities and opportunities. And like Christiana was saying, you know, allowing space for those insights to come,
right,
and to show up for you.
Right.
COVID was a great example of that.
Innovation. Innovate.
Be open to
Innovators,
change.
Yes. And be prepared to move with it. Right. And the more flexible you are, the quicker you will move.
Right.
So that's the last thought I'm going to leave.
Well, you know what? Listen, I want to thank everybody. What an amazing discussion today. I really hope you got something out of this. I love talking about leadership because, you know, I'd also like to one day have a conversation about what was it that sparked you to become an entrepreneur, to have your own business, because that always fascinates me. You know, everyone says that, that I can't stand working for somebody else. I'm going to start my own business. Man, I'll tell you something. If you want an easy life, work for somebody else, because it's tough to run your own business. Right. And I always like to learn about, what makes somebody of sound mind start a business. Right. But this discussion was really great. So thank you. I just want to go through a few of the announcements again. Of course, folks, you can stick around. Anybody who would like to, they can stick around for this afternoon's discussion lounge. And then on Wednesday, we have real estate investing with Yuri Nesbitt. If you are into real estate investing, then definitely jump on that. And then we have the virtual Windsor Business Network event. So definitely join there. Thomas is leading out on that on Wednesday at 5:00. The link is on the website. So please check it out. If you want to try and reach out to people down in Windsor, they're fine folk. So definitely jump on that. Then Thursday morning, we have Tech Talk with Catherine Davies. Always exciting, especially because CES is happening. And, it's always so exciting, to see all the new gadgets. So I'm all over that. Especially robots seems to be a thing that's going to be in our future. Anyway, and then, of course, there is the directory control panel training that's happening right after that on Thursday at 11:00. And then the Women's Business Club. And then, of course, Women's Business Club at 12:30 on Thursday. And then on Friday is the teaser training for our online learning module, which, I call it Rosalind. Of course, Teresa's rolling her eyes, but basically we can, we're actually going to have a contest to actually name the platform. So people can come up with a name and then we'll pick it and then we'll, make them famous kind of thing. So anyway, so that's basically that. Thank you all very much. All right. And we'll see you again. Take care.
Bye.